Phill.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
You know, I just want to say that I'm so glad that God heard my yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
You know, I said yes to God a long, long time ago.
Mm.
You know, just saying that I would be there. If you call me, I will answer. And here I stand before you today bringing you a word from God. Let me just go to the throne of grace before we begin. Dear God, I thank you for this day. Dear God, I thank you for the Unity Fellowship of Christ Church, Philadelphia.
Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you. We thank you for the members. We thank you for the movement, God. It is everything to me. God, I ask that the words of my mouth be acceptable in your sight, because you are my rock and my redeemer. Amen.
Amen, amen, amen.
God's grace is sufficient for me. Now, I might want and desire a lot of things, but my needs are met.
All right now.
God's grace has supplied all of my needs. God's grace is sufficient for me. God's grace is sufficient for you.
Come on now, say that.
You know, Reverend Marcus was all up in my message when he preached about grace and mercy. But you know, that's how it is sometimes. And maybe, just maybe, God is trying to tell us something. Come on. See, the grace of God, simply put, it is God's favor and kindness towards us. God rains down grace on all of us. Everyone has the benefit of God's grace. And it's because God so loved the world.
Glory, glory, glory.
When you see the beauty of the sunrise and the sunset, that's God's grace. When you see the beautiful array of flowers and butterflies, that's God's grace. When you see the majestic mountains and the beautiful sandy shores, that's God's grace. When you think about the fresh taste of berries and fruits, that too is God's grace. When you think about the sounds of nature, the birds chirping, the crickets stridulating. Yeah, I had to look that up. I had to look that up. I was going to say crickets cricking, but cricking has a totally different meaning. You know, all of those things and more are God's grace. And we all get to share it. Grace is just because I love you. Just because we're here on this planet, we get grace. Just because. Grace is us messing up today and having a chance to be better tomorrow. Come on. That's God's grace. God's forgiveness is grace. We gain the innate ability to forgive others because we have been forgiven.
All right now. All right.
Jesus offers instruction of prayer in Matthew 6:12. And he says, "For God, forgive us our wrongdoings as we have forgiven those who were doing wrong to us." Grace.
Grace, grace.
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 Yeah.
God's grace is sufficient for us.
Amen.
Yeah.
Here's something else about grace you may not have known. Grace gives you the freedom to forget about other people's opinions.
Come on.
Come on now,
See,
say that.
grace allows you to be the person that God created you to be before the lies of this world attach themselves to you. You know what lies I'm talking about. You are unnatural. You will never become anything. God don't love you.
Watch it.
You won't make it like that, girly.
Come on with it now.
All those lies that have been beat into us because of grace, we can shed every hideous word that was ever spoken against us.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you.
We can walk in our authenticity. We can live unashamed without limits or restrictions. Our territories can be endless or as extended as we declare.
Come on.
Grace. God's grace is sufficient for us. Now, grace is nothing like blessings. Blessings are tailored for your needs. I have a little testimony about a tailored blessing. Picture it. Philadelphia, 1977.
Right.
In a small row house on the 1100 block of Sloane Street, right off of 40th and Girard Avenue. In the kitchen, my refrigerator has died. I didn't know what I was going to do. The money wasn't there because I was living paycheck to paycheck, and it just wasn't anything extra. I looked at that refrigerator, put my hand on it, and I began petitioning God. And I was telling God, listen, now you know I can't afford a new one. Come on. I'm in the church every Sunday, I'm in meetings every Tuesday, every Friday, every Saturday. God, I'm doing all of this, and I need a refrigerator. This refrigerator cannot die now. I don't have the money for a new one. Now, this refrigerator was my mother's old refrigerator. I kept my hand on that refrigerator. Next thing I heard was that old refrigerator motor cranking up.
Wow.
Oh, I shouted that. They're all over the kitchen. I was like, thank you, God. Because only God.
Only God.
Yeah.
I named the refrigerator Lazarus.
Come on now.
Lazarus is probably sitting on a pile of junk today, just a pile. But I'm not here to talk about blessings because I know you all know about blessings because you are all here.
Thank you.
Now that's a blessing.
Yeah, that's a blessing.
See, not everybody got to see today.
Watch it now.
Grace. Yes, grace. God's grace is sufficient for us. And the really wonderful thing about grace is we can maximize our potential. All we have to do is minimize ourselves. See, a few years ago, when we were at Arch Street, the question arose at a board meeting about who was going to do Grace Cafe. And something in my spirit said, raise your hand and say yes, you'll do it. And I did. Now, I'm not a professional cook by any stretch of the imagination.
Well,
I do know how to do basic cooking. Cook a lot and make it taste good. That was it. I grabbed my trusty sidekick, Brother Raymond, and we knocked it out.
Yes, y'all did.
Yes, y'all did.
I remember seeing Brother Carlos coming to the kitchen. He was like, well, it smells nice. It smells nice, but I don't see food or meat or anything. It's clean.
I remember that.
He had that, I'm not trying to let you see panic on my face, but.
Come on now.
But he even asked if he could help us get started. The food was cooked.
Hey.
Yes, it was.
The salmon was sitting in the refrigerator, and the kitchen was spotless.
Clean, yes.
It was spotless.
Spotless.
That's so funny.
I don't recall how many people we fed, but the people wanted seconds, and there was enough for everybody.
Yeah.
There were Unity people passing out socks and toiletries, Unity people cutting cakes to serve, Unity people serving the people. When I got home that night, I thank God for choosing me to be a part of that moment. My spirit was full. I was full with joy. I was just thanking God that I was chosen to do that. Not that I had the abilities or the wherewithal to do it. All I had was a car to go get stuff. And the ability to just grab Raymond and we went on back and in the kitchen and we just did what was called to do. We just did the work. The glory of God was revealed to me and Brother Raymond that day in a big way. See, I realized then that it wasn't us doing the work. It was God using us
Come on now.
the work.
Say that.
You know, in the second book of Corinthians, which is the sermonic text in your program, I want to give you a little backstory so you can get a full picture of this text. The Apostle Paul offers an explanation of God's method to keep him humble on account of the visions and the revelations that he had. And there is a mention of a thorn in the flesh, but it's not clear exactly what the thorn represents. It could be a great trouble or a great temptation. The one thing we know about this thorn is that it is said to be something that comes from evil. And God uses the thorn to keep Paul humble. Is anyone familiar with the term thorn in my side?
Yes.
Now you know where it came from.
That's all right.
All right.
Teach, you better teach.
So here we are in verse 8, where Paul says, 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me. But God said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. In other words, when you are humble, God can do greater things through you.
Come on now.
See, because your ego, which eases God out, is not in the way of what needs to be done.
Come on now, say that.
Similar to like when ships sail upon the waters and are headed to a certain shore. During the day, the quartermaster doesn't have a problem seeing where they're supposed to go.
Right.
See, there's no need for the lighthouse. Big flashing beacon lights in the daytime. You won't see that. Everyone can see the light from the lighthouse. But during the night, when your visibility is impaired or weakened, that's when the light from the lighthouse is at its most effective moment. So God uses this thorn or great problem or great trouble to keep Paul humble. So that the glory of God can be revealed through him. Spiritual burdens are ordered to cure spiritual pride.
Wow.
Say that.
I think you need to say that again.
That's
please.
right.
You better say that.
Spiritual burdens are ordered to cure spiritual pride.
Come on now, say that.
Thus, God's grace is manifested and magnified. When we are weak in ourselves, then we are strong in the Lord. When we set aside our ego and choose God, that is when the glory of God is revealed. When we stop saying me, 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 and start saying God, God, God. And understand that the grace of God is sufficient. The grace of God is providing all of our needs. Anything we want, we can go and get because of God's grace. God has graced me with the ability to go after anything I feel is important to me. Thank you. God has graced you with the ability and basic common sense to do, to be, to expect, and to have all that your heart desires. You just have to move you out of the way and allow God to work within. I remember when I first started working for the city of Philadelphia, it was a 7.5 hour a day, 5 days a week job. There was no overtime offered or paid in that job. I began working late hours after a few months in City Hall on my own time, doing additional work. See, I began reading the bills that I was supposed to pay. No one even knew I stayed late. I was finding all kinds of mistakes. $20,000 here, $35,000 there. The more money I recovered, the more my spirit rejoiced. I did this because I understood billing. I mean, no one knew I did this for months on end, working late. I just did it because in my spirit it was the right thing to do. And when I recovered over $1 million in billing errors, I sent a report of it to my supervisor. He said, I don't know what this is. And when I offered a chance to explain it, he kind of brushed me off as if, he didn't have time or didn't want to be bothered.
Wow.
My jaws are tight.
Yeah. this.
I recovered over $1 million. I'm not making that much, and I found that much, and had the companies reimburse the city for that money. So after a few days, I sent an email to his boss.
Okay.
Who at that time oversaw the entire department, and explained my discovery and recovery. And basically, he had the same attitude.
Wow.
Oh, I was really ticked. After a few weeks, I went home, kept saying to myself, that work, I recovered over $1 million in billing mistakes for the city of Philadelphia, and I didn't even get a simple thank you. I was crushed. They didn't even order pizza for everyone in the office to celebrate. No one bought in a box of Dunkin' Donuts or bagels to the office. There was nothing done and nothing said, and my spirit was crushed.
Sure.
After a couple of weeks, I created a banner that said over $1 million recovered, and I hung it on the file cabinet next to my cubicle. And it was really pretty too. You couldn't help but notice it. Whenever you came in the office, you was like, what is that? Well, you recovered $1 million?
Okay.
Yeah. And a little time had passed, and one night I said a prayer. I petitioned God again. I get a little dramatic sometimes. Just sometimes.
Oh, wow.
When I'm feeling that my spirit is crushed, I spoke about all the things I had done and didn't receive a thank you. No expression of gratitude, no acknowledgement or recognition, no balloon, no confetti, no nothing. I mean, I was venting. A few minutes later, still in prayer, I began humming. And when I realized what I was humming, the tears began to flow from my eyes. I then understood the difference between my ego and my spirit. See, my spirit wasn't crushed. My ego was crushed.
Oh,
See,
wow. Come
God
on now.
lives in my spirit, and that's invincible.
Come on
So
now.
I'm there humming and crying, and I begin singing, Grace, grace. Just because you can, not for reward, acknowledgement, recognition, or praise. That's when the glory of God is
Come on
revealed.
now. Say that now.
See, in the words of Harriet Tubman, every great dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember, you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars to change the world. I want you to know that 3 months later, I got a full understanding on how God's grace works. My supervisor's boss was let go. My new boss of the department, the head of the department, gave me a 50% bump in salary.
Come on now.
50.
After that, I received another 33% bump in salary and my own office.
Yeah.